Good day, everyone. My name is Sifu Cindy Cicero, and I'm the Director of Operations at the School at Energy Hills. And today we're going to do a teleconference on what is bioenergy and biophotons. And my trip to the Rhine Center in Durham, North Carolina, is going to be talked about in a science background along with energy work. And today I have with me Sifu Rob Jones and Sifu Don Brown. And hello, gentlemen.
How's it going? Today we're going to go over bioenergy and biophotons because that's really what we are teaching students to build up this type of energy so that it's a lot stronger in their own body in our school. And by doing that, you can learn to improve your overall health and actually learn a whole bunch of pretty cool type of techniques. Don, introduce yourself.
Don Brown, and I'm here to maybe shed a little bit of light about the very nature of not just biophotons, but how they play in the electromagnetic spectrum and what they really mean, especially with photons and the nature of the basic building blocks of the universe.
Exactly, and what we're talking about here is we had Sifu Cicero go to the Rhine Institute, which has machines that do measure bioenergy, and that's what we wanted to show students, this credible way of that they're using now to measure the energy that our own bodies put off. And, that's the amazing thing about, being in today's world is like years before we had nothing like this with technology. We didn't really know how things like this worked. We didn't know that there were even things called biophotons. So, it's really cool how much that science has improved. It's, we got machines now that measure everything. And, now they're measuring our actual energy off the body, and they're calling it bioenergy, and it breaks down into these biophotons. And tell the students a little bit about what biophotons really are.
Biophoton is basically a photon, a packet of light energy that the body actually produces. We usually think of photons coming from the sun. We think of photons and light coming from different objects like stars, and maybe even when we turn on the light, it's something that's external to the human body. But German scientist Fritz Albert Popp discovered that the human body emits light even at a cellular level. Cells actually use light to communicate in and of themselves, and throughout the body they send information and signals through photons. And generally speaking, most photons and the biophotons from the body are considered to be not as high energy as a traditional photon, but through research and things like Sifu Cicero experience at the Rhine Institute, it shows that the biophoton can gain energy and actually go into greater levels in the electromagnetic spectrum, even reaching up to ultraviolet rays.
And they're not quite sure how far that actually would reach. I mean, what we're teaching the students is to get already into the ultraviolet range and show that part right there that, that is indeed what was happening there, is when she would register on the machine that what she was putting off was a significant amount of biophotons. And, the thing about biophotons, it's hard to understand how that is bioenergy, but it's basically the usable part of bioenergy. Energy is made up of atoms per se, and electrons, neutrons, protons, the nucleus and stuff. And the part that the biophoton plays in this is it's the usable part of that atom, or the part where the major information like memories like that would be stored, or as we use biophotons, we kind of get this bounce back effect. So we put out biophotons, both biophotons come back at us. And it's a way of communicating that is kind of on this subconscious way.
There's a lot of different things you can do with biophotons. One of the things that I saw that they're beginning to not just speculate, but go into and actually confirm that uh, all living creatures kick off biophotons on some level, and they're starting to think that, hey, maybe this is how migratory birds know to hold a pattern together, and this is how schools of fish communicate, and actually on that cellular level, borderline unconscious, just know to form that school, and everybody stays in their lane, stays in their place, and keeps that shape. And it's conducive to migratory birds flying because it actually makes it easier for the birds to fly. It creates less drag and more lift and things of that nature. And same with fish when they're in schools and they're swimming. It keeps them safer from predators, and at the same time reduces the effort that each single fish would have to use in order to swim. And so there's so many different ways of using bioenergy that, and biophotons were just at the beginning, the tip of the iceberg of really becoming aware of our own potential. And the fact that we are made out of light is mind-blowing in and of itself.
It really is. And now we know that even one biophoton will contain all your genetic information, and that each one can carry more than 4 megabytes of information. And it's funny how your DNA even weighs in there at this point, because like your DNA will vibrate, at the same frequencies as what we use as mass communication, cell phones and different things like that. It's funny that we don't think, because DNA is so small and everything, you wouldn't think of something like that would be in some kind of vibration state. But that's really what we have found out, that everything vibrates. Everything is in motion that you can see or look around, even though in our minds when we look around, we don't see the ground moving or anything, but it's certainly moving. We know that everything is in motion. And so if you understand that how emotion really works and what we're getting to, that there is a significance to light and to the light that we can put off our body, you can use this information in a lot of ways. And what we're finding out now is that the light-filled waves that we put out around us basically hold our long-term memories. They thought for the longest time that your memories that you have through life are stored up in the brain, and now really what they're finding out is because of these biophotons being able to hold so much information, that this information is caught up in these field waves around us, and they really do contain our long-term memories.
And something else that I found interesting in my research is that they're likening now our nervous system less of the speaker wires and more to that of fiber optics, simply because they're realizing that these biophotons are going through our body and are actually transmitted along our nervous fibers as well.
Yeah, and they actually are broadcasting and receiving back information all the time that really is affecting every part of our lives. And, we really didn't realize it was on such a minute level like this, but, the more that science is really studying how these photons work, they're kind of blown away that it works in the way it works. I mean, the way that science is changing is really amazing, isn't it?
Very true. Very true.
Things like, every cell in your body has 100,000 chemical reactions happen in it per second. And something as just as small as just a single cell to have that many, chemical reactions per second. So you're in a constant state of this motion, and there's this constant movement. And now that we know that we're putting out actual, biophotons, or this measurable light, and the experiment, if you watch the video, it'll explain, how photons are picked up on this sheet, and that's how they know that, one person is putting off this amount or another person is putting out another amount. What we're showing students how to do is how to build up their internal systems so that they're building up the nerve fibers of their body, or these fiber optics, like you say. And by doing that, by making that whole process stronger, we're showing this cause and effect of being able to emit more biophotons, and that's what Cindy showed as a result of taking and doing that test, and to be able to control it. And that's the other main thing that we really wanted to get across to students is not only are we going to show them that it's a viable thing that we're putting off bioenergy and that it's picked up as biophotons, in the way that, they're using machines now, so that there is this actual checking that you can see that, okay,